I know that I talk very fast, so I will try to slow it down for this presentation. I did mine on professional gamers. Two reasons. The first is I obviously devote a lot of my free time as a hobby to gaming. At one point in college, I was nationally ranked 12th in a hockey game and won several tournaments. And doing that long term was just not a viable option for me. So it just takes way too much time, and I could have had to drop out of college. Long story. So the second reason is because I did a poll kind of on Facebook to people I know and other realms, and I was curious on what was like the first image that would pop into your brain when you thought of a professional gamer. Like, obviously there's stereotypes. So all the responses I got back, they came back, relatively negative, and obviously the stereotypes took a play in it. So I wanted to kind of shed a light on who they kind of are and what kind of people they resemble, because they're not all these lazy, overweight super nerds. These are the top three things that people would say when they thought of a professional gamer. They just would sit at home all day playing. They wake up like noonish, play their game until they passed out, somehow make money, and live life the easy way. So to kind of get into this realm of professional gaming, you need to be oftentimes recruited or recognized through your streams, because a lot of these players do streaming through like Twitch, YouTube channels, and whatnot. And in order to be recruited for these teams, more often than not nowadays, you have to have a personality. So these gamers just can't sit there and stare at a screen all day and have the YouTubers watch them. It's not that exciting. So a lot of the ones who make good money off of it are ones who often yell at people or make obscene gestures and comments, and that people find it entertaining. And those players are typically the ones who have a better chance of being on these teams that get formed for the various games. So when I say winning the popularity contest, you need to basically be, if there's one guy here, the equal level of skill in a game, if you're more likable on a screen or in a tournament and people can relate to you, then you're going to make more money for your team. And so they're going to pick you. Dedication is obvious, because it's going to, like, you as a professional gamer, you're going to, and this is your job, so you're going to drop everything else you're doing. It's going to be not even an 8-hour day. Typically these players, mostly the good teams, spend about 14 to 18 hours a day just refining their talents, refining their skills. I mean, like any professional athlete, I mean, that's all they do all the time, whether it be weight training and whatnot. So the same goes into the idea of becoming a professional gamer. A lot of the articles and stuff I read in preparation was a lot of these gamers, they leave behind like friends, family, previous lives. Like they drop out of school, like, because they typically start when you're a teenager. It gets kind of ramped up toward the end of high school, and then you make your decision like, hey, this is something I want to do, so let's do it. And you have to literally drop everything, and a lot of relationships just kind of end at that point, and you're all in at that point. So to build a team, majority of these gaming tournaments and whatnot consist of teams of like 4 to 8 players. It depends on the type of game that is being played, whether it be like a first-person shooter game or one of those larger MMO type games, or League of Legends. You may have heard of the more popular ones. And there's 4 to 6 people are typically on a main team, and then you have alternates. And these teams consist of a coach or manager, whom of which most likely played or was a professional gamer themselves at one point. And they are there, they literally just sit here and watch you play, give you feedback, dictate your play, kind of make sure you're perfecting your craft each day and not getting sidetracked with social media or whatnot. In some countries specifically who are more competitive, like South Korea, for example, they actually have schools where you actually have game development schools, so that you go when you're like 8 years old and you start learning how to become a professional gamer. Like they teach you this, and it's like a way of life. And in China, for example, one of the most recent tournaments that was played for a game called Defense of the Ancients. 5 of the top 8 teams were from China, and one of the main methods that they do differently is all of their team members live in the same house. So all your training with your team members and solo take place under the same roof, and so you can imagine that's probably a very awful environment to be in. But, so that it just goes to show you how what these people do just to win, potentially win money from tournaments. Lastly, with the team, when you're thinking of adding a team, it goes back to you want this person to be likable. You have to be marketable because your team in order to become a gamer, you have to live off of your tournament winnings and sponsorships. And people aren't going to sponsor you if the way you project yourself is negative towards their company. So when you're building this team, you're going to think about, well, can I market this person just like any other athlete? Now, with anything, there's always a risk and there's always a reward. With this area, the risk is a lot higher. So I gave a statistic for one type of game that they do. It's 27 million people roughly play this game called League of Legends in North America. 40 of them make a salary to live off of out of that many. So it's really hard to actually get in there. So it goes to show you what kind of time and effort it takes to get in. Sponsorships and tournaments obviously are what keep you afloat. So the managers, oftentimes their role is to also be the business manager. So they have to go out and they have to get this money from you, get these sponsorships, and if you can't do that, then you're going to basically rely on getting into these tournaments and winning them, which oftentimes you don't. So then the turnover is pretty high. Majority of these people who try this route go broke, and if you end up becoming successful, it's not sustainable for a long period of time. By the time you're 30, you don't really see professional gamers older than 30 years old. 25 is the average age of failure. So your gaming career basically has a quick end date. So you have to think of what's next after gaming. A lot of these players turn into commentators for the sports because streaming has become ever so popular. And there's like I think 45 so odd million Twitch accounts now, and they'll become a YouTube personality and play games more for fun, and they make walkthroughs and whatnot. Or there's actually a big program now for these gamers to go in to help them learn to play professional poker because a lot of the skills match up to what a professional poker player needs to be successful. I found that pretty interesting. But to give you an idea of what the rewards can be for these teams who are successful is that group of 5 South Koreans were the winner of a tournament, and their prize was $5 million for winning. The total prize pool was $10 million, so I believe the third place team got $1 million. So obviously the very good teams become very profitable. So that's kind of the idea of why you want to get into the whole field, because hey, I could make money doing what I love, playing games all day. So that wraps up my presentation.